For some reason, historically, I've seen a bit of a unwillingness to show all the cards at the beginning. I guarantee you that is the thing that causes this frustration later. And I think it's just stuff that needs to get out at the beginning so we're not wasting time, dollars, budget, resources, all these things, because challenger brands specifically do not have the luxury of doing things multiple times. All right, I'm excited to talk about this one. Door number 3, recently surveyed marketing leaders. So marketing leaders, these are people leading in-house teams at agencies on the client side. We solicited their feedback around resources, strategy, their paid media, and creative. Okay, so we asked them to essentially self-report, about their team's experience in these areas of strategy, media, creative, and organizational flow.
Yeah, and the results have been very enlightening. We've sat with them for a couple weeks, and anticipating this recording, we wanted to really draw out what are the insights, what did the results show, some themes and common pain points that you're watching this in your context of leading a marketing team, I'm sure you'll relate to your daily life or maybe another chapter in your career that you can relate to those pain points. But we're going to push a little bit past the pain points and identify some solutions and things that we've seen in the marketing leaders that we work with, and in our own context, some solutions that have been helpful to address these.
Yeah, let's dig into it. So the first area we surveyed was around strategy. All right, so this includes brand strategy and really marketing strategy kind of broadly. Some of the common pain points in this area are, and I'm going to read some of these off, things that they needed to respond to. Mm-hmm. My team is slow to shift gears.
Yeah.
Okay. We have brand attributes, but no clearly defined brand strategy. Mm-hmm. Others are, I don't have the relational equity or tenure at my organization in order to influence internal stakeholders to buy into a whole new approach. So pain point around herding cats and getting people to nod their head. Mm-hmm. Others are, we don't know what we don't know. I'm unsure if we're staying on the cutting edge of how marketing trends are evolving. And then another one was, we lack the people, systems, and or resources we need to execute the plan.
Yeah, and so in Vision, these participants had the opportunity to select from 3 smiley faces or sad faces. So picture yourself leaving the airport bathroom and you get to fill out a survey on your way out of if the bathroom was clean. There's a green smiley face, there's a yellow neutral face with a line across, and then there's a red sad face. And so it was a intake survey is how we framed it. Like you're almost walking into, lots of analogies here, airport bathroom, the therapist's office, but you're filling out like an intake survey to identify of these 4 sections, and the pain points listed, which one resonates. So I found it interesting in this section of strategy, there were some polarizing results that are worth highlighting, in that the most unhappy responses were in response to the question and the pain point of, we don't know what we don't know. So that's common in any setting. I'm sure you've taken a job and, you're just kind of going with the light that's right in front of you one step at a time, but you hardly are aware of what you don't know because you're just doing what's right in front of you. So that was relatable. People expressed and resonated with that point. And then the second one, within the strategy section, we saw some green smiley faces, happy responses to people feeling confident in their ability to get buy-in on an idea once the idea has been articulated and kind of circled around the respective cats that they're herding.
Interesting. So it's this element of like FOMO, maybe fear of missing out, or just not knowing, like just wondering if we know, if we have all the information, or there's things out there that we're just not up to speed on. I think that is understandable, and I don't think that that's something you can escape, but I do think there's things you could do about it. I mean, part of it is just taking ownership of that individually. And part of that is working with your team to collaborate on ways collective knowledge can kind of elevate. So when I think about that, like there's certainly people that do this really well that I know, they time block and they have Google alerts that come to them based on keywords, right? They're following certain blogs, following certain newsletters, social media follows, influencers, in certain industries, right? Mm-hmm. Attending conferences is huge. I think we go out to Expo West for CPG conference, natural food and stuff like that. So my thought is taking ownership and blocking time with intentionality. If this is a priority, you kind of got to own it and you got to educate yourself. But I also think you can work with your team, either in-house or your agency partners, to have some cadence around this. Maybe it's like a quarterly lunch and learn where different people show up and have a bit to share on a trend or something that's going on, or case study that they saw out in the wild. There's certainly ways you can up your game here, but I get it. And I think it's something that needs constant work, to stay on top of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that the strategy section, we framed up questions that were related to marketing strategy in general and also brand strategy specifically. And I just wanted to point out that we just recorded a couple weeks ago a great episode about brand strategy with a subject matter expert on this topic, Kathy Galloway. So in the description of this episode, you'll see that we've linked that recording. So feel free to check that out. And it's like a physician, when you go to the doctor, you kind of assume that they're up to speed on all of the trends and you want to feel confident that they are aware of evolving education on things. And so similar for us, of course, on an agency front, but then with you as an in-house team, leading your marketing team, it's just important that you go out of your way. It just doesn't necessarily happen when your tunnel vision sets in, where you're busy tackling the thing right in front of you. So it's been a reminder for us even, and just our team, how do we be super intentional to continue our ongoing education, if you will, in lots of the respective like specialization areas of marketing that can kind of be overlooked, but are super important to stay up to speed on because it's changing so fast.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, now let's tackle the media section of this survey. Here are 4 of the pain points that we articulated in this survey that participants got to react to. So the first one is our KPIs are good, but we're struggling to get conversions, brand lift, or other meaningful results. The second one was I'm not getting reports frequently enough to feel confident about what's actually happening in real time. And then the other 2 are I've got too much raw data that's not distilled into actionable insights. And then the last one is I worry that we're stuck in our ways and behind the times, and we're not on the cutting edge of new marketing tech strategies or channels. So similar to what we talked about in the first one, but focused more on the paid media aspect here. So in general, the results that we see are the CMOs are underwhelmed by the quality of the results and they're getting, which is understandable. And then also on a related note, they're not getting quality insights from the reports that they're getting.
Okay, so they're frustrated by the reporting, it sounds like, right? Okay.
That was a big pain point.
It's like the reporting is a frustration point, and then like what are the insights from that reporting? It's not, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's the rhythm and the real-time results. So they might be getting reports that they're like 2 weeks ago. And then, things have already evolved so fast in those 2 weeks. But then even when they are getting those reports, the insights are not clear. So you're spending all this time trying to dig into the weeds where it needs to be all the way at the top at an executive level, able to quickly glance and quickly gather the implications of what's the story that these numbers are telling me.
Yeah, I could see that being a struggle. And I think like some people that are in the marketing role that are particularly good at like strategy or creative messaging, but maybe not as into data and analytics, that's not as natural. So the main thing I would say here is to like try to find what's the solution is like take the Burger King approach. I think you need to have it just like you like it or whatever that it's like customize it and have it exactly how you want it. And I think that that's on the agency or the media company that you're working with to deliver that, because I think a lot of this speak can go over people's heads. And so what you want is not just pulling together all this data, but like, okay, from this data, what's the narrative thread? What's the recommendation? What's working? What's not? Like, what are the levers we can pull? Because there's so much data out there. So I really believe that reports should be customized. I mean, sometimes you see media agencies or digital agencies, ad agencies reporting just the way they like to report. And we always have a starting point on that. But like for our clients, our reports for media look different depending on our audience. And so it's what they want to see, what's meaningful to them, and what do they understand. And then there's the second layer of that. Then they have to go report it to their own internal stakeholders in the C-suite. So sometimes there's even tweaks to that report to make it digestible to those people. So I think it's a lot of like pushing to get it where you can understand it and it's making sense and there's some good takeaways from it. And I would just keep pushing on that because I don't think that it has to be like presented one way.
Yeah, that's really well said. So we've tackled media. We've also tackled strategy. Now let's talk about creative. So this is a really fun section, and I know for sure that you'll recognize some pain points in here. It's a mouthful, but here we go. Some of the pain points that we asked our participants to respond to is one, our creative messaging doesn't represent our unique offering as well as it could. The second one is our message is good, but the way that it's expressed falls flat. Our messaging, you could say. It's a super common thing. You've done all of this work in the brand building and it's already moved into the creative assets of how it should show up, but the way that once it goes out into the real world, it's just not landing. And then the third one is, I don't know if our creative is resonating with the consumer. The fourth one is that I have multiple audience segments and we struggle to deliver messaging that resonates with all of them respectively.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So the results in this section indicate that over 70% of respondents are not happy with how budgets and timelines stay on track. This is tied for the most unhappy responses. So that's a big issue. Whether you're working with an internal project manager or with a project manager on the agent side, I think there's some things to address that and think about in order to avoid that pain point as much as possible. The first one is really, really honest, transparent conversations at the beginning around things like budgets and timelines. I know it sounds a little silly, but it's like, what's really driving a timeline? What's the budget really look like, especially once you get into like creative execution? Is this an aspirational timeline, an aspirational budget, or is this reality? I see a lot of times, there's always time to do things twice. It's like what the saying, right? And that's what happens because it's like not all the information was put forth at the beginning. Therefore, there's a bit of a redo somewhere. And so that causes a lot of frustration. But I think it's getting really realistic around client review cycles, stakeholder involvement. How long is it really going to take to get interviews lined up or herd cats? Or is there a peanut gallery that's going to show up at the end and start giving opinions that we don't know about right now? And that's going to set us back 2 weeks. So for some reason, historically, I've seen a bit of an unwillingness to show all the cards at the beginning. And I guarantee you that is the thing that causes this frustration later. And I think it's just stuff that needs to get out at the beginning so we're not wasting time, dollars, budget, resources, all these things. Because challenger brands specifically do not have the luxury of doing things multiple times. So that's a big one. While not a major stressor, nearly 60% report some dissatisfaction with transparency in their creative process. So said another way, there are too many silos maybe within the organization. It's difficult to keep everyone on the same page throughout the complex creative process. I totally get you and I feel you on that. So I want to keep going because I think this is a theme that bleeds into the next one too. Because the final one in the survey, the final section addresses organizational dynamics and leadership challenges. A higher percentage of unhappy responses was in response to specifically, there's too many people to keep happy. It is difficult to get consensus and approved strategies and creative. Does that sound familiar? I mean, I think it's common. We see it a lot. We witness it a lot. We hear it a lot. I think of this whole survey, what I just read, I'm going to read it one more time, might be probably the biggest pain point. There's too many people to keep happy. It's difficult to get consensus and approved strategies and creative. So yes, and I think half the job of someone in marketing and in a key role in marketing is internal advocacy. Championing new ideas and rallying stakeholders is really not for the faint of heart. You were at the center of it all: innovation, HR, PR, operations, product development, you name it, you're at the center of it all. And then you're doing this work that affects sales and everybody else. So half the job is to bring people along. And I think a good agency or a good partner should support you in that. I will say we get pretty delighted when we provide tools for our own clients to go off and rally the troops within their own walls, like whether that's a PowerPoint or some distillation of an idea onto a one-pager or something. Like that's part of our job to do that. And I can get just as excited about that as delivering a great script. I just think like that is the job and it is really hard to do. And I think the people that do it well, I think of people that we've worked with, CMOs, they find this way to just kind of like go around and have these little conversations that bring people along at just the right time. So like nothing should be a big ta-da. The big ta-da in the boardroom, that's terrifying because everyone's showing up and they're not in the same headspace and they haven't been brought along. And all of a sudden, here comes the firing squad. So yeah. I think, let your agency or let your partner support you on bringing people along. That's a really, really, really important one. And I see it when I look at this survey and I think of all the themes of frustration. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's a huge one, isn't it?
It really is. And as we land this plane and end this episode, I want to leave you with encouragement around that challenger spirit that we're always inspiring the brands that we work with, challenger brands, properly by the definition, or just you in your context needing to outthink where you can't outspend. And that might be resources, or it might be your energy, but just double down, today into your context, and know that all of these pain points are not just your experience. There's other people that are having the same experience. And when you do start to embrace that challenger spirit, it gives you new strategies and new light bulbs that come to mind. So I hope this was helpful, and we'll see you on the next episode.